Francisco Hussain Day walk tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Embarcadero Plaza. We urge you to go out and show your support. Tonight is part 2 of the 3-part lecture series, Modesty During Immodest Times. We're very lucky to have with us tonight our dear guest scholar, Moulana Syed Hussain Rizvi. He's visiting from New Jersey. Please help me to welcome him up with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله نعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله الآخر أهدي مني لزيارتكم. Everyone together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We began last night our series of discussions about a very important topic and concept that we have in our akhlaq, which is called haya, or roughly translated to as modesty or chastity. We talked about the definition of it. We said that haya, what is haya? Haya is an attribute. It's a characteristic within the believer which gives that person, the individual, the strength, the fortitude, the resolve to stay away and to refrain from those things which cause indecency, from those things which are evil, from those things which are not within the dignity of a mu'min to go and perform. The ability for a person to control their limbs, control their hands, their feet, their ears, their eyes, their thoughts, the judgments that we make from people, that strength, it comes from this quality, it comes from this characteristic which is called haya. And we talked about the relationship that haya has with our religion. Haya is a crucial part of Islam. Haya is a crucial part of our iman. But it even goes beyond that. Haya is also a crucial part of insaniya, of being a human being. One of the defining characteristics of a human being is that a human has haya, whereas an animal doesn't have haya. A human being has a certain level of haya which defines him. If a human being loses the haya, loses that level of modesty and iffah, what happens? They fall to the level of animals. And we talked about that story, that individual during the time of Yazid when the head of Imam Hussain was brought into the court, where this Christian man, because he had insaniya, he had humanity within him, he had a form of human dignity, and when he saw such a repulsive action against the grandson of the Prophet of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. That he was so repulsed by that eventually it led him to his salvation. It brought him to the religion of Islam, and he did taslim at the head of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. So we said that haya is what? Haya is a sign of faith. If you want to see how much faith you have, how much iman you have, look at the level of haya that you have. If a person lacks haya, then such a person doesn't have any faith. If a person has a high level of haya, then that means they have a high level of faith. There's a hadith from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where he says, كثرة الحياء كثرة حياء الرجل دليل إيمانه. That the more haya that a person has, this shows that their level of iman is higher. If a person has the strength, if a person has the resolve, the fortitude to stay away from those acts of indecency, that means their iman is higher. If you want to see a person who has strong iman, look at their level of haya. Look at their level of staying away from acts of indecency. Look at how they stay away from engaging in unnecessary conversations with other people. Inshallah, we'll talk about tonight what are some of the extensions of haya. But one of those important alama, one of the important symbols to determine our level of faith is how much haya that we have. How much we're able to control our eyes, our ears, how much we're able to control our mouth, our thoughts, where our thoughts going, what are we thinking about during regular time when we're by ourselves, what are we thinking about, what are we reflecting about, are we thinking about other people, are we thinking about other aspects of the community, about individuals that we're not supposed to be thinking. All of those, they come from extensions of haya. That's why when you go to our ulama of akhlaq, they say one of the qualities you should inculcate in your life is haya. When you go to some of the big scholars and you ask them that, give us some advice, give me some information that I'm able to raise my level of iman. So they give you very simple advice. The advice that they give is stay away from muharramat. Stay away from those things which are haram. That ability to stay away from haram, where does it come from? It comes from haya. It comes from that level of modesty that a person has. There's different levels of modesty. One level of haya is that in front of other people. When we're in front of other people, there are certain things that we don't do. Right? There are certain things that we may not say when we're in front of other people. When we're around another group of people, like for example, we're around our friends, then we may say those type of things. When we're around a certain type of friend, then we may crack a certain type of joke. When we're around our parents, there's certain things that we don't say at all. If we're around a Moulana, around a Sheikh, absolutely not. We're just quiet. We don't say anything, right? Around different people, there's different types of haya that we have. When we're, for example, by ourselves, no one is around us, we have a certain level of haya, right? When we come to the masjid, to the Hussainiyah, to the center, there's a level of haya. When we go to the school, there's a level of haya which we have. But the most important level of haya is that haya in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. Huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum. At every moment of our lives, whether there's someone around us or whether there's someone not around us, who do we have haya from? We have haya from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are certain things that we don't say. There are certain things that we don't think. There are certain things that we don't engage. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is monitoring us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. The highest level of haya is not haya in front of other people. In front of other people, we may have haya, and that's an important level that we should maintain. Unfortunately, in this society that we're growing up and we're living in, what's happening is that even that is decaying. Haya in front of other people is no longer there. People are not embarrassed in front of anybody else. Actually, we find that people, they have this boldness within them, that in front of other people, I should say things which are repulsive. I should say things which are incendiary. This type of boldness which comes from them, this impulsiveness which is there to go and show off to other people, that actually comes from a lack of haya. That's what we call waqaha, which we talked about last night. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Ali Moulana. There's a tradition from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. In this tradition, he talks about 10 things that are makarim al-akhlaq. We've all heard that famous hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, where he says, "Innama bu'ithu li'utammima makarim al-akhlaq." that the reason why I have been sent, the reason why I have been, sent as a messenger to mankind is to complete makarim al-akhlaq. There's a discussion between what is mahasin al-akhlaq and makarim al-akhlaq. The previous prophets, they had the obligation of doing mahasin al-akhlaq, but the Prophet, our Prophet, he came to perfect makarim al-akhlaq, the perfect attribute, the perfect akhlaqiyat, the perfect ethics and morals of Islam. So these 10 things that the Imam Sadiq mentions in this hadith, these are 10 attributes, these are 10 qualities that we should try to inculcate within ourselves. He says, as Imam Sadiq says, al-makarim ashr. These 10 qualities, how many are they? They are 10. فَإِنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ أَن تَكُونَ فِيكَ فَلْتَكُنْ. So the Imam says, strive to have these 10 qualities within yourself. Assess yourself. See, do these qualities, do you have it within you or you don't have it within you? If you have these qualities, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Try to take that quality to a higher level. If you lack that quality, then practice it. Exercise that quality so it becomes a part of who you are. Before the Imam, he goes and he mentions what are these 10 qualities. He mentions a very important sentence. He says, فَإِنَّهَا تَكُونُ فِي الرَّجُلِ وَلَا تَكُونُ فِي وَلَدِهِ. He says sometimes these 10 qualities, these makarim al-akhlaq that are there, sometimes they're in a father, they're in a human being, they're in a person. وَلَا تَكُونْ فِي وَلَدِهِ. But sometimes they're not in his child. These same qualities and attributes that we see in the father or in the mother, sometimes those attributes, they're not within the children. And then he says, وَتَكُونُ فِي إِبْنِهِ وَلَا تَكُونْ فِي أَبِيهِ. Sometimes the situation is such, these 10 qualities, these 10 makarim al-akhlaq, sometimes they're in the kids, but then they're not in the parents. And this is a very important point that the Imam, he alludes to. And this is a misunderstanding that many people have, which is that iman and akhlaq and faith and piety, our character, our values and our belief, these are not hereditary. These are not something which are just passed down from our parents. These are not something which undergo a genetic process. They're not something which is just because my parents have it, now I'm going to have it. Just because I have it, then my child is going to have it. These are not things which automatically pass on to the next generation. These are not transmitted just based on the relationship of mother and father and child and son and daughter. So many parents, they come to me and they tell me that, we're religious, we're practicing. We come to the center, we pray 5 times a day, we recite the Quran, we donate, we're always involved and active in the center. But our children, they're not. They have no interest. They have no desire to practice religion. Sometimes they come and they say that our children want to go and sometimes even engage in haram. They want to go and have haram relationships. And so they're so confused that why is it that we are so religious and so practicing, but we haven't been able to transfer these values to the younger generation? What happened? The misconception is this. This misconception is that religion and values and character, that they're just passed down through genes and ancestry. And then this is a big misconception that many people have. The Imam is saying, in this beginning, before he enumerates what are these 10 makarim al-akhlaq, he says make sure that these 10 qualities you have within yourself, but you also have to ensure that they're within your children. And these are qualities and characteristics that you have to train your children to have. Don't just think that, okay, my child is within the house, child is in proximity to me, then the same things that I do, that the child is going to do. We as human beings, we're a product of our society. We're a product of our circumstances. The way I grew up, the way that you grew up, we're a result of that. The way that our children are, they're going to be a product of their society. When it comes to, for example, physical characteristics, when it comes to, for example, hair color and height, when it comes to certain things like eye color and the shape of the ear and the shape of the nose, those are hereditary. But when it comes to our morals, when it comes to our character, we don't directly inherit those from our children, from our parents. We have to make sure that we strive that they have those qualities. Yes, maybe some of those qualities may come, but we have to ensure that the entire package, that the entire religion of Islam is being passed down to our children. When we grow up in our society, if you look back in our childhood, the likes, the dislikes, the hobbies, the interests that we have, all of these are a product of the society that we grew up in. We got exposed to certain things. Like, for example, when I was a kid, in middle school, in high school, we used to play basketball all the time. All the time, day and night basketball. So I have a basketball and just practice my shot. Just basketball was the hobby that I had. Now my child, I try to get him into basketball. He hates it. He doesn't want to play basketball. He refuses to play basketball. However much I put him into a camp, he says, Baba, I don't want to do basketball. I don't like it, So then I have to find something else for him. Now he likes, combat sports. I never did combat sports a day in my life. My dad said, no combat sports. We don't want you getting in fights. Go and study well, study hard. Don't do fighting in this. But now he likes combat sports. He does BJJ and he does boxing. Those are the sports that he likes. Even though I tried pushing him, but what happens? He's a product of his society. He's a product of his upbringing, and we are a product of our society. We are a product of our upbringing. So we have to understand that our approach when it comes to these type of things, they have to be rational. They have to be logical. The Imam, he mentions this hadith, and it's a very important hadith. He says, فَإِنَّا تَكُونُ فِي الرَّجُلِ وَلَا تَكُونُ فِي وَلَدِهِ. It's possible that this attribute of being pious, of being righteous, of being, having godliness in your life, of having taqwa in your life, it may be present in your life. But the Imam is saying it doesn't necessitate that it's also going to be in your child's life. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Why is the Imam mentioning this? The Imam is mentioning this because he understands the problem that society has. He understands that people, they don't think like this. People don't think in a rational way when they approach religion. And we see examples of this happening in society over and over again. Sometimes the child strays away from religion. The child doesn't practice the religion the way that the parents they want to. And sometimes they hear some things from other individuals that your child is doing this. Your child is involved in a haram relationship. Your child is going to this type of event, to this type of gathering. And what happens? The parents are in complete denial. They say, my child? No. It's not my child. Anybody else's child, but not my child. They're completely in denial of what is happening. Sometimes there's even evidence. Sometimes there's video. Sometimes there's pictures. And the parents, they deny it. They say, this isn't possible. This isn't something which is possible for my child to do. And we see this happening over and over again in our society, especially here. Of course, these challenges, they're also there in other Muslim countries, but over here it's a much bigger challenge where we see parents who are religious, who are pious, who are involved, but the child has no trace of religion, has no trace of religiosity. You cannot even tell that this is a child of that individual, of that person. Sometimes the parents are so involved in the center, they're bringing the Moulana to the masjid and taking him back. They're keeping the Moulana in his home. And the child is where? The child leads a completely double life. Child is going, clubbing, going to parties, going to the club, doing these type of events and involved in these types of activities. Why? Because this is an important point that our iman, brothers and sisters, our faith is not hereditary. We're not going to be able to pass it just because we are practicing. We're not going to be able to pass it to our next generation just because we are Muslims, just because we are Shia, just because we love the Ahlul Bayt, just because we come to the Azah of Imam Hussain. That doesn't mean that our children are also going to go do that. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We have to ensure that when we approach our religion, and our religion teaches us this, when it talks about tarbiyah, how tarbiyah starts from even before the child is born. When the child is within the womb of the mother, tarbiyah is beginning from that point. And it continues all the way till the end of a person's life. We have to make sure that our approach is logical, that we are rational. Sometimes, when we approach religion, we don't have any rationality. We don't have any logic. Other aspects and other dimensions of our life, we're very logical. We're very systematic, right? We want to make sure that everything gets done properly. When we approach this, for example, our work, our school, our education, everything is very systematic. But when it comes to religion, Moulana, please give me some special dua to recite. Moulana, is there any special water that you can give to my child to drink and that he'll become religious? There's no such thing as this. Can you give me, some mother asked me, can you give me this a special ta'weez or a special ring that my child can wear and they'll be religious? We don't have any such thing. We have to make sure that when we come and we inculcate these values within our religion, that it's tandem with logic. And what does that mean? That means that when we teach our aqaid, when we teach our values, when we teach our morals, when we teach our belief system, when we teach our articles of faith, it requires teaching. It requires instruction. It requires practice on the part of the parents. It requires the parents, they themselves, they learn, but then they also practice within the house. So many times, the mother and father, they're on two completely different pages. The mother is religious, the father is irreligious. And then what's going to happen to the child? They see this apparent contradiction, and then they're going to become discouraged. So many times they come to the Imam Barga, they come to the Hussainiya, they hear one thing from the mimbar, Moulana is saying to do this, Moulana is saying not to do that, and when they go home and when they spend time with their parents, what do they find? They find that whatever the Moulana is saying to do, they're not doing. And whatever the Moulana is saying to avoid, their parents are engaging in. So what happens? They see this clear contradiction within their lives, and what happens? Eventually they're not able to make sense of it. We have to understand our religion is based on logic. Our religion is based on cause and effect. These concepts are not passed down in a vacuum. This entire creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is based off of cause and effect, causality. Causality is what governs this realm of creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Aballahu an yujri al-amur illa bi asbabiha. That nothing will happen in this world except if the causes are there. If the causes are there, then we're going to see the effect. We cannot expect that the effect will come without the proper causes being there. You know, when I was a student, years ago in Qom, we used to go for a Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr behind this scholar, this great scholar. His name was Ayatollah Shabadi. His grandfather was the akhlaq teacher of Imam al-Khomeini. And so, Aghay Shabadi, he used to recite Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr. And so in the summers, we used to stay back and, go and pray behind him. And then after after prayer, we used to sit down in a small circle and have a discussion, just a few people, 7 or 8, 9 people. And, he would just, ask us questions, and we would ask him questions. He would give us advice about about religion, about faith. And so we would sit there, and this was like in the hot days of the summer. When alhamdulillah, you guys are lucky. You guys living in California, you don't witness this too much. I'm coming from Dallas, Texas, and we had a few days where 112, 113, 114. Coming here, it feels like winter sometimes. The weather here, mashallah, you guys are very fortunate to have blessed weather. But in Qom, also it was extremely hot. So we used to sit with Aghay Shabadi, and we used to ask him some questions, and people used to come and ask him to do istikhara, and he would give them whatever advice for their questions. So we were sitting there, and a person comes to Aghay Shabadi and says to him that Haja hava kheli garme. Ek duai cheezi bede ke hava ek kami sartar beshe. He said the weather here is very, very hot, and especially in those days in Qom, sometimes the electricity would go, and when the electricity would go, the fan wouldn't work, the cooler ghazi it would be extremely difficult. So he says, can you give me some dua? Can you give me something to recite? So he said, chash. So he wrote down on a piece of paper, recite this dua after every prayer, and inshallah, khub mishe. So then this person, he got very happy. So he took this piece of paper and he walked out. A few minutes later, he comes back. He comes back and he says, Haja, he says to Aghay Shabadi, for how long should I read this dua? So he says, shish ma bukhuni. He says, for 6 months, read this dua, and then the weather is going to become cold. Don't worry about it. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's no special dua, there's no special dhikr that if you recite, that automatically the weather is going to become cold. Whatever the situation is, try to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it's cold, whether it's hot, your focus should be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Focus on those things that you have an impact over, right? So he jokingly said, read the dhikr for 6 months, and 6 months eventually the summer is going to pass and winter will happen, and then the cold will disappear. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So when it comes to every aspect of our lives, it's based off of cause and effect. When the causes are there, then we're going to see the effect. If we have glasses, then we're able to see. If we have, for example, light, then we're able to have vision. When, for example, we have rain clouds, then it's going to rain. Everything works according to this. Even our religion, when we want to go and teach our religious values, when we want to teach our beliefs to our kids, we have to make sure that there's proper instruction there, that there's proper teaching there. If those things aren't there, we cannot have this expectation that just because our kids are our kids, that somehow they're going to have the same beliefs that we have. It's important that these causes are there, but then we also have to ensure that those mawani', that there are sometimes impediments that are there. Like for example, if you want to put something on fire, one of the mawani is what? Is that if that piece of paper is wet, is it going to catch fire? It's not going to catch fire. There are certain mawani which are there which prevents our youth from becoming religious. There are certain mawani for us from becoming more religious. We also have to make sure that not only do we create those causes, but also those impediments, those barriers that our children and our youth face, that those are also removed from their lives. Sometimes those mawani, what are they? Sometimes those mawani are their friends. A lot of times, our youth, our young children, because of bad friends, they start engaging in haram. They start engaging in the wrong things. They start engaging in behavior which is disorderly, which is unacceptable in Islam. Parents are religious. Parents have a very good, environment within the house. Parents teach them the Quran. Parents teach them the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt and our aqaid and all of these things. But what happens? Sometimes a wrong friend, a wrong individual comes and puts the wrong ideas, and what happens? They become completely misguided. There's a hadith from the Imam that al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, that the biggest impact and the biggest influence upon a person is who? Is their friend. Sometimes a wrong friend can misguide and deviate a person so much that the parents can do everything which is right. But what happens? Because of this one friend which is wrong, what happens? They become misguided. One of the parents was telling me that they decided that one summer, very religious family, they decided one summer to take their daughters to go to Pakistan to see their family. They haven't been there for a very long time. The daughters, mashallah, all of them muhajjaba and practicing and, very religious family. They go to Pakistan, and when they go to Pakistan, they meet some of their family members. And this is a Muslim country, a Muslim environment. But the cousins who were there, they were a little bit older than these girls. They said, you're living in America. You're living in such a, in a Western society. Why are you wearing hijab? You don't need to wear hijab. Why are you limiting yourself? You're taking away so many opportunities from you. And so what happened? The wrong influences started going into their mind. And so these girls, when they came back, they were on shaky ground. That should I practice? Should I wear hijab? Should I not wear hijab? Sometimes we have those mawani are there, and those mawani misguide other people. That's why we have to be vigilant when it comes to our kids, that not only we put the proper causes, but we remove the mawani. We remove those impediments. We tell them that be selective with who you choose to spend time with. Don't go make friends with everybody. Don't go and talk to everybody. Don't go and get advice from everybody. Sometimes those mawani are within our own family. Sometimes they're among cousins. Sometimes a cousin may go and introduce, our children something which is haram. Our children are protected, and they may never see something which is forbidden. They may never see something which is promiscuous, something which is obscene. But this has happened. Sometimes a cousin goes and shows them a movie, shows them a picture, shows them, for example, a page on Twitter and this and that. And what happens? Then those wrong types of ideas that are there. We as parents, we have to make sure that when it comes to our children, when it comes to our youth, that all of the causes are there. But then we also have to make sure that the impediments, that the hazards, that the dangers, that they're removed as well. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Haydari, Ya Ali, mashallah. Please recite one more salawat for our youth. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we as parents, we have to provide all the causes. We have to remove those impediments for their spiritual growth. But then another important responsibility that we as parents have is that we have to exhaust every opportunity to make our children as religious and as pious as we can. One of the things that I hear from parents whose children become irreligious, they say, well, Nabi Nuh and Nabi Lut and some of the other prophets, from Nabi Adam, right? Some of their children, they became misguided. We can't make these types of claims unless if we went and we raised our kids like Nabi Nuh and Nabi Adam. If we went and we exhausted all of the resources and for our children to become pious and religious, and then our children decided that, we don't want to practice this, then perhaps that we can make this type of claim. But if we have never done that and we expect our kids to go and practice our religion the way that we do, then that's not something which is going to be possible. This claim that, that on the Day of Judgment, we're going to be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are multiple hadith that talk about this, where the children will come and complain about the parents. And this is really sad because as parents, what do? We do everything for our children. We give them the best that we can. And on the Day of Judgment, what's going to happen? The children who are irreligious, they will say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't hold us accountable. Hold our parents accountable. Don't punish us. Punish our parents. Our parents didn't give us a proper upbringing. Our parents didn't train us properly. Our parents didn't take us to the center. Our parents didn't emphasize religious education. They emphasized that you have to get the best grades. When it comes to, for example, Muharram and you have an exam, focus on your exam. When it comes to Ramadan and fasting, skip your fasting. Skip your fasting. It's not important. Go and, make sure that you do well and perform on the exam. So our priority was what? Our priority was the world. Our priority was education. On the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring them and bring the parents and bring the children. And the children will say, put all the blame on the parents. The parents, they are at fault. And then there will be a back and forth between the parents and the children. And the parents will say, well, they didn't listen to us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hear both sides of the argument, and then He will determine what the judgment is going to be. And that's something which is very sad. Because if on the Day of Judgment our children come and they complain about us that we didn't teach them properly, then what excuse do we have? So we have to understand this very important point, which the Imam is mentioning. I didn't get to the 10 points that he mentioned, but he's mentioning this one point, that pedigree is not going to override what goes in a person's mind. Just because a person is Syed, just because a person comes from a family of religious people, or a family of ulama, that somehow that the child is also going to be like that. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Ali. So our approach has to be a logical approach. We cannot think that, my child is, for example, one parent, she came up to me and she said her daughter was born on the birth of Lady Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha. And that because of that, she's going to be a pious person. She's going to be a righteous person. That we take our children to, ziyarat year after year after year. Those are all important things that are there. But what's more important than all of that, brothers and sisters, is the training and the teaching which is going to happen within their lives. Our situation has to be that we have to spend time training our children. We have to come and we have to assess how much of our religion are our children practicing. Do they have any questions? Do they have any shubahat? Sometimes, they get exposed to certain ideas about religion, and then those are now mawane in their lives. Sometimes, for example, this youth came up to me and said to me that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Arhamar Rahimin. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all forgiving and all merciful, then why do we have to pray and why do we have to stay away from all of these things? And so these mawane are there. These wrong ideas, these wrong misconceptions are there. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Arhamur Rahimin, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the same time, He's also a judge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also Hakim. All of the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put together, we have to understand that there are certain things that we need to do and certain things that we need to stay away from if we want that ultimate salvation. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so when all of these proper causes are there, and these mawane are removed, only then are we able to pass on these qualities to our next generation. Nabi Musa alayhi salam, he had fallen sick. And when he had fallen sick, Bani Israel, some people from Bani Israel came to him to see how he was. And one of the doctors came to Nabi Musa and said to Nabi Musa that there's this medicine that you should take. And this medicine will make you feel better. And so Nabi Musa tells that person that, I have faith in Allah. I have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take care of me. And Nabi Musa had fallen sick for a very, very long time. And he's doing munajat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, oh Allah, cure me. Oh Allah, allow me to recover. For a very long time he was sick. And then finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Nabi Musa. And He said to Nabi Musa that, why aren't you taking the medication that Bani Israel brought for you? And he said, oh Allah, I have faith in you. I have trust in you. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the cure for your sickness was within that. Yes, it was in dua. Yes, it was in worship. Yes, it was in trust in me. But your cure was where? Was in the dua that they brought. Was in the medication that they brought. Go and do dua, absolutely. But at the same time, go and take the medication. The means for cure are doing dua, but also taking dawa. And so what is happening? What's happening is that we have to understand that we have to create those proper causes. That having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is important. Having trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that our children are going to be pious and righteous and practicing, that those are there. But at the same time, we have to take the proper steps in order for us to pass those qualities to our children. We can't expect some type of miracle to happen. Parents, they come and they tell me, and it feels very awkward. They say to me that, please tell my child to pray. And the child won't listen. What am I going to say to the child? Even, they take some of the irreligious people to some of the maraj, even to the imams. But the imams cannot go and work a miracle, snap their fingers, and all of a sudden they start praying. No, if those asbab are not there, then that's not going to happen. And so what is the imam saying before he mentions these 10 things? He's saying, make your approach in religion something which is logical. Try to figure out what is the best way that your child learns. Or figure out what is the best way that you can pass on those values. And then the Imam, what does he say? He says the next part, وَتَكُونُ فِي إِبْنِهِ وَلَا تَكُونُ فِي أَبِيهِ. Sometimes good qualities, good traits, good characteristics, they're within the child, but sometimes they're not within the parents. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them, has put the proper causes that child may return to the religion, may return to practicing faith, but the parents are deprived of that. One of the students in the Hawza, he was a brother whose parents were completely anti-religious. Not only anti-religious, but they didn't want to see any notion of religion. Somehow this brother, when he went to college, he took an Islam course, then he got exposed to Shia Islam, he studied, he read, he did all of these things, and after a period of time, he decided to go to the Hawza and study. And so, a person is sometimes shocked that the parents are sometimes so irreligious and secular, but then how did this child How was that able to happen? Why? Because those proper causes were put within him, and so he was able to turn towards the religion of Islam. And so the Imam continues. So after mentioning this muqaddama, he mentions those 10 makarim al-akhlaq. وَقِيلَ وَمَا هُنَّ. What are those makarim al-akhlaq? The Imam says the first, I'll just read through them, and then we'll get to the main point that we wanted to talk about. The Imam says the first thing of makarim al-akhlaq is sidqul ba's, which means that a person should be brave, should be courageous. A person should be willing to stand up for the truth. وَصِدْقُ lisan. A person should be honest. A person should be truthful. They shouldn't bring white lies. They shouldn't be deceptive in the way that they speak. وَأَدَاءُ الْأَمَانَةِ. That if someone has given you a trust, if someone has given you something to borrow, that you take care of it in the best manner and you return it. Sometimes it happens. It happens to me all the time. Someone, they may come and they may ask me for a book. And so I say, sure, take the book. And when they give the book back to me, all the pages are folded and bent. There's notes written there, and I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. If you take an amana, give it back in the same way that I gave it to you. But sometimes we go and we borrow things, and we use it in such a terrible manner that when we give it back to them, we're not doing justice to that amana. Then the next thing the Imam says, وَصِلَةُ الرَّحْمِ. To be in touch with your close of kin. وَإِقْرَاءُ الضَّيْفِ. To invite other people to your home, to allow other guests to come to your home. One of the reasons why it's so highly recommended to bring guests to our home is because it creates brotherhood. It creates harmony within the community members. During the time of the Prophet, there was a lady, and she came to the Prophet and said to the Prophet and complained about her husband. And she said, Ya Rasulullah, my husband, he always brings guests to my house, and I've had enough. Please tell him to stop bringing guests. Every day, a new person. He brings a new family. And she says, I'm becoming exhausted. I'm becoming tired. So, Prophet ﷺ, he goes to the man and he says, go and tell your wife that I'm going to be a guest at your home tonight. Rasulullah, he had a very nice sense of humor. So the husband says, okay, what? Rasulullah is coming to my home. So he goes to his wife and says to his wife that Rasulullah is, coming to my home and make a delicious meal. So the wife, she gets excited, she gets happy. She said, Rasulullah is going to come, and I'm going to cook an amazing meal, and she's going to tell my husband not to bring guests to my home anymore. He's going to tell her husband not to bring any more guests. So Rasulullah comes to her home, and they sit, and they eat, and they have dinner and whatnot. And so she's waiting. Is the Prophet going to tell my husband to stop bringing guests? This is the reason why I invited him. And so the Prophet doesn't say anything until the time came where the Prophet is leaving. And when the Prophet is leaving the home, he turns to the wife and he takes his hand and he goes like this. And what does this lady see? This lady sees that there's all these insects and these bugs that are leaving the house of the woman. And so the Prophet says, allow your husband to bring as many guests as you can. Because every time a guest comes into your home, all of the sins and all the wrongdoings that you're doing, they leave the house and your house becomes purified and clean. So don't complain so much about your husband. And if he wants to invite a guest, allow that guest to come to your home. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Ali. And then the next thing the Imam mentions, وَإِطْعَامُ السَّائِلِ. If someone comes and asks you for food, someone asks you for a need, go and fulfill that. Then he says, وَالْمُكَافَأَةُ عَلَى السَّنَايَ. And then he mentions that reciprocate the good. If someone does something which is good to you, go and reciprocate that. Don't just be a leech. Don't just take and take and take. Give back to other people. Like the community center. A lot of times people, they just come to the community center, they're just participants. But when it comes to giving back to the community, they don't give back. When it comes to donating, they don't do that. When it comes to expressing their generosity to the center, they don't do that. But they come to all the programs and they learn and they listen to the lectures and they eat. But when it comes to reciprocating the good which is being done to them, they don't do that. The Imam says, وَتَذَمُّمْ لِلْجَارِ, that your neighbor, go and honor your neighbor. Go and take care of your neighbor. Have this genuine concern for them. وَتَذَمُّمْ لِلصَّاحِبِ, if you have a friend, go and honor your friend and defend your friend if someone is treating him in a wrong manner. If he's going through some type of difficulty, go and honor your friend. And then Imam, he mentions the last one. And he says, وَرَأْسُهُنَّ الْحَيَاء. The fountainhead of all of these quality, what is it? It is haya. Which means what? Which means that all of these qualities, they are generated how? They are generated through haya. The attribute that haya has is that it facilitates other makarim al-akhlaq to come about. If in our personality, if in our character we have this attribute of haya, all of these other makarim al-akhlaq, they come. But if we don't have haya, then we are devoid of these other qualities which are there. And Imam says it's a ra'suhanna. Just like the importance of the head is towards the body, that's how important that haya is to our personality and character. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please recite one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. How much time do I have? Do you know? I don't know what time I started, so I'm just gonna go. If no one's working tomorrow, right? What time do I have till? What time did I start? I'm good. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so this quality of haya is something that we need to inculcate within ourselves, but it's also important to inculcate it within our youth. Why? It's because in this society, they get exposed to indecency. And they get exposed to indecency at a very, very young age. I mentioned last night that, indecency when we were growing up, it was outside of our home. But now indecency has now penetrated within our homes. And so the only solution to this is what? The only solution to this is that we instill proper haya, which means that we teach our kids. We teach our kids how do we dress, how do we talk. When we hear something inappropriate, what is our response? Do we just listen or do we walk away? Do we turn away? Right? These are ways that we can instill instill haya within them. Especially for when it comes to libas, especially when it comes to dressing. It's important that these qualities of haya are put in, because we live in a time in which lewdness, when promiscuity has become completely, rampant. People, they don't dress properly. People think that exposing themselves makes them more advanced, makes them more modern. But if you look at it, the more a person exposes themselves, the more they are resembling to animals. Animals are those creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who haven't been given haya. So what do? They go and they expose themselves, especially when they're young. From a young age, we have to teach our kids that how do we interact with the opposite gender? How do we look at them? How do we speak to them? Do we go and we engage in jokes and in other types of unnecessary activities with them? From a young age, it's important. Like my son, he does BJJ. And there's girls and other individuals who are there. And so we told the coach that our son doesn't, he doesn't roll with girls. And the coach is like, no, I have to, we're about, equality and, feminism. And I said, no, well, we don't want our child to go and roll with girls. And so after we insisted so much, now he doesn't roll with any girls, and the coach has now accepted that. And especially now because, you guys have like Habib and these other Muslim MMA fighters, and none of them, roll with girls. So it's like, okay, now we have a little bit of confidence that this, Habib and these other individuals, Islam Makachev, they don't roll with girls. So we're following the same, sunnah and practice as them. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If we don't inculcate haya from a young age, then our children are going to gravitate towards indecency. That's going to be instilled within them. And when indecency is instilled within them, then what's going to happen is the light of Iman is going to distinguish. The light of Iman is going to get less and less. MashaAllah, this brother who recited the Quran so beautifully, he has nur on his face. When our children, when they recite Quran, they have this light which is emanating from their face. They have this innocence which is there. If a person goes and engages in bihaya'i, goes and engages in waqaha, what happens is that light, it begins to decrease. And when that light begins to decrease, then what happens is that the wrong that they do, it slowly begins to intensify. Sometimes they may do something haram which is small, and then it impacts their faith, and then it goes to something which is more intense and more intense. And what happens? The light of Iman in their hearts, it gets less and less. Imam Ali in Dua Kamil, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to that Allahumma khfir liya dhunub allati tahti kull isam. We as believers, we have a certain level of immunity, which means what? That certain sins we don't go and commit. Why? Because we have that haya which is there, which tells us that don't do it. So for example, none of us will go and drink alcohol. Why? Because we have a certain level of isma. We have a certain level of immunity. But when haya is taken away, then slowly we go and we gravitate towards that. And eventually what happens? We go and commit some of those kabair of sin. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's a hadith from the Imam where he says, Al-haya'u yasuddu an fi'l al-qabih. He says, if you want to know what hinders you from going and committing acts of indecency, what inhibits you from going towards sin and misbehavior, it is haya. Haya is what prevents you from acting obscene in an obscene manner, from talking in an obscene manner, from looking at those things which are impermissible. If the strength to say no to acts of disobedience, that strength is generated through haya. In another hadith, the Imam says, Al-haya'u mahramatun. That haya is a deterrent. Haya is something which is a preemptive defense mechanism for you from going and committing acts of indecency. Just like when we wear a mask. When we wear a mask, what happens? Those particles and those viruses that are there, they are prevented from entering into our system. The Imam is drawing this example that haya is like a shield. Haya is what protects you. If we don't have haya, then what happens is that we put trash, we put vulgarity, we put indecency in our minds. And we see the effects of that. When a person doesn't have haya, what happens? They start to become intrusive. They start to probe, they start to look here, they start to look there. This interest in other people begins to increase. Haya puts your priorities in perspective. Alaykum anfusukum. That our responsibility, our priorities within ourselves. A person who doesn't have haya, they're constantly thinking about other people. They're constantly thinking about what's happening in other people's lives, what's happening behind closed doors. It causes them to go and probe into other types of matters which they're not supposed to. So brothers and sisters, the extensions of haya are very much so. In society, haya has a very important role. If the society during the time of Imam al-Hussain had haya, then Karbala would not have happened. When they saw that Islam is being mistreated in such a manner, then this haya which was there, it would have encouraged them, it would have pushed them to go and stand in front of Yazid. But because of lacking haya, what happened? In front of the crimes of Yazid, they kept quiet. And this one quality was a quality which the Ahlul Bayt, they made sure to instill within their children. One of the companions of the Prophet by the name of Sahl ibn Sa'd as-Sadi, he narrates that he left Medina and he went to Palestine, he went to Palestine, he went to Bayt al-Maqdas. And on the way back from Bayt al-Maqdas, he came to Sham. And when he came to Sham, he saw that the streets of Sham were decorated and that the people were in a joyful state of mind, that they were wearing nice clothes, they had decorations, that they were hitting drums, and it was some type of celebration. So he said to himself that, what has happened that the people of Sham are celebrating? Is there an Eid? Is there a celebration? Is there a joyful event in Sham that we don't know about? And so he came to somebody and he asked that person that what is going on in Sham? And so they replied to him that this is the head of a Khariji. That somebody who was a Khariji stood up against Yazid and he was put down. So he asked, who was this person? He said, Hada Ra'sul Hussain. This is the head of Imam al-Hussain. And so he says, Wa ajaba yuhda Ra'sul Hussain wan nas yafrahun. The head of Imam Hussain is being given to a tyrant. And how is it possible that the people are celebrating? And so he asked, where's the where is this head of Imam Hussain? So they tell him that it's by a certain door. And so when he goes to that door, he sees that the head of Imam Hussain is there. And when he looks at it, he begins to cry. He begins to cry so much because this head which was there, it resembled the head of Rasulullah so much. And he begins to cry and weep, and he gets close to the Ahl Haram. When he comes closer to the Ahl Haram, there was a young girl from the Ahl Bayt there. He says, Ya Jariya, man anti? He says, oh girl, who are you? She says, Ana Sakina bint al-Hussain. I am Sakina, the daughter of Hussain. And so as he's crying, he turns to that daughter, he turns to that girl, and he says, Alaki hajatan ilayya? Is there anything that I can do for you? Ana Sahal ibn Sa'ad. I am Sahal ibn Sa'ad. Mimman ra'a jaddiki wa sami'a hadithuhu. I am somebody who has seen your grandfather and I've narrated hadith. So she says to Sahal, she says, Ya Sahal, قُلْ لِصَاحِبْ حَاذَا الرَّأْسِ أَنْ يُقَدِّمْ الرَّأْسَ أَمَامَنَا. He said, go and tell the person who's holding the spear in which the head of Imam al-Hussain is there, tell him to go in front of us. Why? The reason why? حَتَّى يَشْتَغِلِ النَّاسِ إِلَيْهِ. So people, they look at the head of Abi Abdullah and they don't look at us in our states in which we don't have hijab. وَلَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى حَرَمِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. And they don't look at the haram of Rasulullah. Imam Hussain, he taught his children from this age to have haya, to cover yourselves up, to have decency. On the day of Ashura, Imam Hussain is being attacked by the enemies. One of the musibah of Imam Hussain was that this intense thirst that he had. Imam Hussain had this intense thirst which no other companion, which no other shaheed had. On the day of Ashura, when all of the companions have gone forth, Imam Hussain is by himself. And at this point, his thirst was intolerable. And so he makes his way towards the river. When he goes towards the river, the enemies, they say that Imam Hussain should not get a drop of water. So they knew Imam Hussain had haya. So what did they tell the soldiers? Umar ibn Sa'd told the soldiers that go and invade the tents of the women. When Imam Hussain saw that the enemies were going and attacking the tent of the women, what did he do? Imam couldn't go towards the river anymore. He comes out of the river and he turns to the army of Ibn Ziyad and he says, وَيْحَكُمْ يَا شِيَّةَ آلَ أَبِي سُفْيَانَ إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَكُمْ دِينٌ وَكُنْتُمْ لَا تَخَافُونَ الْمَعَادِ فَكُونُوا أَحْرَارًا فِي دُنْيَاكُمْ. He says that if you don't have any decency, at least have a little bit of haya, have a little bit of decency to not go and attack the woman. وَرْجِعُوا إِلَى أَحْسَابِكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ عَرَبًا كَمَا تَزْعَمُونَ. Go and look at your forefathers. Your forefathers had some level of haya and decency. Imam, he goes and he attacks the enemy. And then he comes a point where the Imam is coming out of the Euphrates and he's attacking the enemies. And he's defeating many of the enemies. They begin to attack Imam Hussain. And Imam Hussain, he fights valiantly, he fights courageously, and he breaks the enemy's lines. Umar ibn Sa'd realized that we are not going to be able to kill Hussain like this. He tells the entire army to attack Imam al-Hussain. Imam Hussain is being attacked from all different sides, from all four sides. But the Imam, he's able to maneuver in such a manner where they're not able to kill him. Our Imam, thirsty for 3 days. Our Imam, his body is wounded all over. He's thirsty, he's exhausted on the day of Ashura. They begin to attack, and Umar ibn Sa'd realizes that we're not going to kill Imam. So he says that this is the son of Ali. In order to defeat him, we must come up with another strategy. So he tells the archers that all of the archers should fire their arrows at Abi Abdullah. They surround Imam Hussain and they begin to throw arrows at the body of Imam Hussain. Those arrows, they come into the back and the chest of Abi Abdullah. Our Imam, he's bloodied, he's injured on his horse. We say salams to you, O Abu Abdullah. Salams to all of your wounds and all of your cuts. Salam to your blood-drenched clothing. Salam to you when you fell from that horse on the sand of Karbala. A barrage of arrows, they come down upon Abi Abdullah and they strike the body of Imam al-Hussain. Our Imam's body is filled with arrows, but Imam is still sitting on the horse when a mal'un comes and strikes the foot of Abi Abdullah. When this mal'un comes and hits Abu Abdullah's foot, Imam feels this intense pain and he begins to bend down. When he falls down from the horse onto the sand of Karbala, the Maqtal says he falls down on his right cheek of his face. But despite this, the Imam, he gathers his energy and he continues to fight. An enemy of Allah comes and throws a rock at the forehead of Abi Abdullah. The forehead of Abi Abdullah begins to bleed. At one point, there was so much blood coming from the forehead of Abi Abdullah that Imam lifted his shirt to wipe off some some of the blood from his forehead. When an enemy looks at the chest of Abi Abdullah and fires a spear at the chest of Abi Abdullah, Imam calls out, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah. Imam, he removes the spear from his chest and the blood begins to gush out. He takes his hand and he covers the wound, but it becomes too much. He takes the blood from his chest and he wipes it on his face. He sits down on the ground and one of the enemies comes and strikes the head of the Imam. The Imam's helmet is filled with blood. That head which Fatima and Ali and Rasulullah used to kiss is bleeding. He falls on the ground and he is not seen moving. The enemies, they don't know whether he's alive or dead. So they say, go and attack the tents of the women. The body of Imam begins to shake a little bit. And they realize that the Imam's haya is still there. One of the enemies, they come to Abi Abdullah to deliver the final blow. But at the end of the Imam's life, the Imam, his body is not shaking even one bit. Well, perhaps the reason for this is that he knows that Zainab is watching. He knows the pain and the agony that Zainab carries in her heart when she sees her brother in this state. He does not want to see Zainab weep over him. Imam, he knows how much pain there is when a loved one is on the ground and shaking violently. He has witnessed when Qasim fell to the ground, he called his uncle, Ya Amma Adrikni. But in those final moments of Qasim's life, Qasim's legs and arms were shaking violently. Imam comes to his side and he cries that what can your uncle do when he comes to your body and there is no one to help you? The body of Qasim is shaking over and over again, and the heart of Imam Hussain begins to tremble. When Qasim was leaving the world, Imam Hussain felt such intense pain. But here's Hussain in his final moments of his life. Imam is making sure his body doesn't shake violently because he knows that Zainab is watching. He wants Zainab to have a little bit peace, that your brother has left this world and been reunited with their father and their mother, because he knows a few moments later Zainab will come out and cry, Wa Muhammada, Wa Aliya, Wa Hassana, Wa Hussaina. She will cry out, Hada Hussain murammilu bid-dama, Hada Hussain muqatti'u al-a'dha. Who is this lying in front of me? This is the body of Hussain whose blood has been mixed with the sand of Karbala. Hada al-Hussain muqatti'u al-a'dha. This is Hussain whose body has been chopped into pieces and spread onto the sands of Karbala. ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله الآخر عهدي مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Let us raise our hands and recite the dua for the safety of Imam al-Zaman. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات، إنك مجيب الدعوات، إنك على كل شيء قدير. Let us say اللهم صل على محمد. Let us recite Surah Al-Fatiha for all of your marhumin, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Ya Hussain, 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 Ya Hussain. Hussain rides onto the battlefield. On one hand is the Dhul Fiqar, carrying him on is Dhul Janah. Watching over him is Ali. Enemy strikes, Hussain fights. Arrows rain down, he falls with might. Enemy strikes, Hussain fights. Arrows rain down, he falls with might. La ara al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. La ara al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. Shim walks onto the battlefield, dagger in his hand ready to strike. Hussain lays in the plain, no help in sight. Shim sits on the chest of Hussain. Oh, you Shim, what will you do? Hussain is here to spread the truth. Oh, you Shimr, what will you do? Hussain is here to spread the truth. La ara al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. La ara al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. Zainab standing there all alone, the burning tents rising in the flames. Up above there used to stand Hussain, his trampled body now lay in the plains. Up above there used to stand Hussain, his headless body now lay in the plains. Father Ali, our brave Abbas, brother Hussain, come see our loss. Father Ali, our brave Abbas, brother Hussain, come see our loss. La ara al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. La ara al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada.
Now it is done, all is done. Hussain has been slain and so have his sons. Nobody remains to help children. Nobody remains to help Zainab. With heads on spears, you'll end in chains, dragged through the streets, thrown into shame. With heads on spears, you'll end in chains, dragged through the streets, thrown into shame. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة، لا حياة إلا الشهادة، لا حياة إلا الشهادة. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة، لا حياة إلا الشهادة، لا حياة إلا الشهادة. Sakina crying into the night, waiting for her father Hussain. Soldier walks in with head in arms. Sakina stops crying and recites, "Oh my father, where have you been? They ripped my ears, burned down the tents. Oh my father, where have you been? They ripped my ears, burned down the tents. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة، لا حياة إلا الشهادة، لا حياة إلا الشهادة. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there. Hussain, vai, Hussain, vai, Hussain, vai, Hussain, vai. صلنا على محمد وآل محمد. الله السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى